Hi and welcome. In this Simplifier tutorial, we want to create a list of purchase items from a SAP ERP purchase order and format the data in a specific order. Before we start, let me give you a brief overview of the tutorial. We will create a new application with an authentication method for which we are going to use our login wizard. The application connects to SAP ERP purchase orders and selects a specific order document with the required items. Our Good Receipt app solves a similar use case and is free to download. You can download it from our marketplace. The link is in the description. Before we begin, please note that you need to use Simplifier version 8 EHP2 or higher. Create a new application and use our login wizard to quickly create a login. In our example, we use an already configured identity management system called MyID, which is based on the OAuth 2.0 protocol. Our login wizard takes care of all the rest. Let's start by adding our first UI elements to the screen. We'll need an input field for the purchase order number, so let's rename this field to purchase order number. To make testing easier, we'll prefill the value property of this field with our purchase order number. Next, we add a new table below the input field and deactivate the search property to avoid confusing the end user. Now, we select the second row below the header row, as this is where we want to list our purchase order items. To connect the data source, we'll configure the data source property by selecting Connector as the interface. Then, we choose SAP_purchase order and the operation purchase order _read. This operation contains the items in the data structure ES_data, where we dive in and select the POITem list. Next, we want to change the header labels to more suitable names, such as material, net price, and price date. Great! Let's start assigning and formatting the data for our table columns. In the first column, we want to display both the material short text and the material number. Click on the column and change the text property. In the binding editor, add the concatenate operator first. This gives us two placeholders where we can insert data fields from our SAP purchase order items source. First, drag a new data source item shape onto the first placeholder of the concatenate operator and select short text. Then, repeat the action and choose material, which is the SAP material number, for the second placeholder. To customize the separation symbol, double-click on the concatenate operator shape and select a custom delimiter. We'll add a dash to separate the two data fields. Close the dialog by clicking on Save, and the first column's format is configured. In the second column, we'll add the net price using a similar process. Open the binding editor for the text property and drag the format number operator onto the canvas. Drag a data source item into the placeholder, select net price and click OK. By double-clicking the format number shape, you can access options to configure formats like short format or decimal places. Next, we want to add a currency symbol. To do this, we'll concatenate the values as before. Drag and drop the concatenate operator between the target and the number format. Choose space as the delimiter and add a constant with the euro symbol. Finish this step by clicking Save. In this final step, we want to add a price date. It's important to know that the date format coming from SAP ERP is year-month date by default. Start by opening the binding editor for the text property of the third column and selecting the date and time formatter. Then, drop the data source item and select price date from the SAP ERP data source. Now it's crucial to choose a custom format for SAP dates in the input configuration of the formatter. To verify the results, modify the example value and delete the time information. Select Custom and enter YYYY-MM-DD as the input format. For the output formatting, you have several options such as time zone, time, short, long, etc. Since we only have year, month, and day information from SAP, select a fixed format and choose dd.mm.yyyy. To finish this application, we need to add the event for loading the SAP data into our logic flow. First, select the second row of the table, which will later hold all the incoming data. You'll see your configured data source in the property panel. To add this data source to the process designer, Open the Process Designer at the bottom. Click on the login story and drag the data source after the navigation to the welcome screen. As the final action, we need to provide SAP with the purchase order number. Open the input mapping on the connector shape, then drag the input field with the pre-filled purchase order number into the input mapping. Select the input parameter 4_PO_ number from the data source and use the auto mapping feature to map the fields automatically. Now we can deploy the app and see the final result. All 3 columns are displayed and formatted as expected. That wraps up our tutorial. We've successfully added and formatted our UI elements, connected to the SAP data source, and deployed our application. Thank you for watching this tutorial. See you in the next one. Stay awesome.